Welcome to the Meditative Shift, where science meets practice, and transformation begins by changing your mindset to restore your energy and to reclaim your mind. Remember, change is constant, and how you navigate it is the shift. In our last episode, Rebuilding Connection, we explored the ancient story of the Tower of Babel, how a once unified people, driven by ego and illusion, became scattered and disconnected. We looked at how the story mirrors today's digital landscape, constant noise, fractured communication, and the illusion of connection that social media so often sells us. And the response, well, that's why I'm speaking today and I'm doing a continuation. It was powerful. It actually struck a chord in so many people. So today, we're going to continue that conversation with a deeper invitation. What does it mean to anchor in reality? I'm not talking about the stories in your head, not the scroll of someone else's highlighted reel, but the deeper truth of who we really are, that steady, clear, and unshakable being that's within us. This space is here to explore science, spirituality, and timeless wisdom to help you navigate change with presence and power. That's the purpose of this Meditative Shift podcast. And this episode, as always, is supported by Women in the Round, which is a collective of practitioners and seekers helping women move through life's transitions with strength and purpose. After Rebuilding the Connection episode, I received this message from someone in our community. She said, "Okay, I admit it. I found myself checking my Instagram to see if I was getting clicks. And then your podcast called me out. It was like you were naming something I didn't even realize I was doing. That episode served as a wake-up call and exactly what I needed." I thought to myself, wow. It actually inspired me to focus on what is real and what is not real. Hence, I say anchor in reality. But not reality as you see it or perceive it, but the reality as the ancient seeker within you who actually knows it. And her reaction, like many others, is that awareness of what is really needed. And it's really needed to first be recognized within us. We have to recognize what is real and what is not real. You know, the illusion that we all live by and come to realize, either now or at the time of departure. So that illusion does come to our awareness sometime along this journey that we're all experiencing. Here, we're not judging ourselves. Let's take note here. We're just noticing. We're becoming aware. And that's where a shift will begin. When we can step back and say, oh, wow, look at that. Not with judgment, just, wow, look at that. I'm reaching for something that's not even real, that's not even nourishing me. It's not about shame, but it's about clarity, awareness, choice. And that listener wasn't alone. So many of you shared that episode with me that it cracked something open. That for the first time you were questioning why you scroll, why you post, what you're really looking for when you reach for your phone, for example. Well, that means something is shifting. In this episode, it's about the next step. After we see the illusion that we perceive, our truth that we think we're seeing, how do we come back to really what's real? And the reason why I'm focusing on what's real, because that's the place where we have clarity and inner peace. So let's break it down. We're going to move into the science and wisdom that we do in every podcast. Let's look at the science for a minute. Neuroscience tells us that our brains don't process, I'm going to use the word reality here. The brain is in the habit of predicting it, right? That's the way we wire ourselves through the amygdala portion of the brain, let's say our memory, our emotional centers also. And we're anticipating something happening based on our memory. I've heard it called predictive coding, for example. I like to say wiring. But our minds filter what we experience based on what we expect to see. Our perceptions, which are based on our past stories, our past beliefs, and conditioned assumptions. Maybe something that hurt us. And they're all based on, let's prevent fear, because we all are driven by that fear. Or escaping fear, for example, or escaping the inevitable of what we're perceiving it to be. In other words, our perceived memories that we have stored are what we use to create our reality, or what we think is our reality. So even when we think we're seeing clearly, we're often just running an old mental script. That's why two people can view the same incident, and when asked to repeat what they saw, they came up with, what they saw, they come up with two different answers. I've seen it. I've used it in classrooms before, or classes when we do retreats. And in most cases, that perception, in fact, all cases, it's based on our past experiences. So two people could look at one incident, and I won't get into specific incidences, and see a positive, a negative, a neutral, all based on what their reality is, their false reality within their own mindset. And now we're adding social media into the mix. So a nonstop feed of curated lives, right? That's our dopamine loops that we create, the algorithm-driven narratives that we see. And suddenly, we are so far from being grounded. We begin to mistake stimulation for connection, speed for depth, even performance for truth. In many spiritual traditions, reality is not something you chase. It's something you return to. The breath, the body, and the present moment. These are the doorways to be centered in reality, the never-changing self. That's with a capital S I'm talking about here. Not the spinning mind, the protection of the ego. The ego chases for approval. I've heard it said, you live your life according to what your deep driving desire is. So ask yourself, is your desire to be seen? If so, you may perform. Is your desire to belong? You may shapeshift. In other words, change your persona of who you are just to fit in. But if your desire is to know the truth, to know the pure self, in other words, to feel peace and clarity, then all your habits, everything comes to be anchored inward, and that becomes your life. So think of yourself like a tree in a windstorm. Social media is the wind. The world's narratives are even more wind, but your roots, your habits, your intentions, your breath, that's what keeps you from being blown away. So how do we anchor in reality? Here are 3 simple ways to begin. Do a breath check. Set a timer 3 times a day. When it goes off, stop and detach from what you're doing. Close your eyes. But not if you're driving, everyone. I have to say that. If you're in a space where you can close your eyes. Focus on the root of your nose and exhale, carefully watching the process. And then inhale, carefully watching the process. You don't have to count. You don't have to do any breath holding. Just watch the breath. And do that for 3 to 11 complete breaths. This one will actually regulate your nervous system within a minute or so, and it brings your awareness back to now, the present. You can also, another step, audit your inputs. Take a real look at what you consume daily, by way of food and by way of sensory impressions. What you listen to, what you see, what you taste. Here I'm talking about food. And what relationships you foster. Is the sensory input nourishing or is it numbing? Make one small change. Unfollow a toxic account. In other words, that which you walk away and feel unsatisfied, vexed. I like to use the word vexed. Your spirit is vexed, disturbed, distracted, stupefied. Replace 5 minutes of scrolling with a 5-minute process of stillness. Or write down one thought that's actually yours. And the third practice I would say is ask, what's true for you right now? When you feel overwhelmed, bring yourself back to this question. What is actually true in this moment? Maybe it could be I'm breathing, I'm safe, I'm tired. Naming what's real actually helps interrupt the illusion. So always remember, you don't have to be perfectly present. You don't have to delete every app. You don't have to renounce the world. Just come back to the self. Just come back. Again and again to your breath, your body, and to yourself. Because anchoring in reality isn't a one-time act. It's just not going to just happen all of a sudden. And it may, if you're blessed, it may happen that way. But it's a practice. And with every return to the self, you grow stronger, more rooted, and more established in yourself, more peaceful, more clear, more joyful, and more energetic. Keep in mind that small shifts create big transformations. You're not stuck, you're in motion, because life is vibration, and vibration is motion. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love you to take a moment to subscribe on YouTube at Meditative Shift. Share this episode with a friend who really might need it, and leave a review. It helps more than you know. And if you're ready to take this work deeper, check my latest book, The Overnight Diet. It's a guide to shifting your mindset through diet and stepping into a more intentional, empowered life. And you can find it on susantaylor.org or Amazon. And if you're looking for a space to slow down and reconnect, join me for my bi-monthly guided meditation practices. It's a chance to reset, breathe, and shift your energy into real time. You could sign up at courses.susantaylor.org. But just always remember, change is constant. How you navigate it is the shift. And until next time, honor your body, anchor your mind, and trust the journey.